Hi folks, this is David Sung with GrayHawk DJC, and today we're out here in Lewisville, Texas in front of Moonshot 3D. They're a 3D printing company, and we're about to meet the owner, Adnan Hussaini, and he's gonna take us on a tour of the shop, and we're gonna talk to Adnan about what it's like to own and operate a 3D printing business. Hey Adnan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
All right, so we are inside your office. This is your show. Tell us about your shop here.
Cool, yeah. So this is our shop. This is Moonshot headquarters. We just moved in here about a year ago now. This is a brand new facility. It was custom built for our operations. So custom HVAC, custom power, custom pretty much everything. Where we're standing right now is kind of the final stop in where parts make it through our shop. We're a manufacturing facility, so we're making custom parts for a huge range of different types of customers. Everything from automotive to aerospace, medical device, and everything in between. So parts will come on these shelves, they'll get matched up with the travelers. We go through quality checks over here. Parts get packed, boxed up and shipped out. So this is kind of the last stage before everything leaves our shop.
Awesome, awesome.
All right, so this is one of our flagship technologies. This is one side of our facility. This is an HP MJF 4200. It's one of our most used printers. We've only had it here for about 6 months. We're actually bringing in a second one already. We've maxed this one out now. The way that this printer works is it uses powdered plastic that's heated up close to melting point, and then binding and fusing agents are sprayed down on that powder. They're actually heated up so that they sinter that powder to each layer underneath it. So when it's done, you have a whole range of parts that are actually held inside of a build unit, and I can show you what that looks like right now. So this build finished earlier this morning, probably around 6 a.m. So inside here, all the parts are located. And this build actually it's got about 1,000 plus parts inside of it. And a lot of our builds tend to be like that, high volumes of parts with a huge mix of different things inside of there. So there's everything from, small little widgets, small housings, larger components. It could be anything. The beauty of this type of printing technology is that we can run a high volume of parts in a really quick amount of time. If you have a lot of like FDM printers, you can do somewhat of the same, but you're managing a lot of different printers to do 1,000 parts. For us, we can do all of that with one. And now we're gonna double that and increase our capacity quite a bit. All right, so now we're on the second floor of the shop. The MJF was down there, we just came upstairs. This area right here is our SLA area. So SLA is a technology that uses liquid resin that's cured by UV light. These two printers are actually pretty old. These are some of the original 3D Systems SLAs that they came out way back in the day. The beautiful thing about them, they still run. They still run really well. We can make really good parts off of them. Then over here, our Formlabs SLA printer. So this is the next generation of what those evolved into. So this is about almost 10, 12 years of technology evolution right over here. And the beautiful thing with these printers is that those ones were kind of limited by technology and material. You have to have a huge vat of material inside of it, and to swap that, it's very expensive. So we keep those locked to a material. They run watershed and accurate clear view. These printers, we can swap those trays whenever we want to. So we can be printing one material one day and then a completely different material the next day. Even within the same day, we can swap over and over. So it gives us a lot of versatility and agility to match what our customers' needs are at any given time. And for us, that's the biggest thing. We're always looking to give our customers the best possible solution. So having a pretty big arsenal of materials and technology available all the time is kind of key for us. All right, now we are on our second warehouse. This is our SLS side and post-processing side of the operation. So behind me is another one of our flagship 3D printers. This is a 3D Systems S Pro 60. Essentially works very similar to the MJF. It uses plastic powder that's put down layer by layer, heated up close to melting point. And then the difference with this one compared to the MJF is that instead of binding agents, this one has a high powered laser at the top. That will actually shine down and center the powder as it kind of runs each of those cross sections. So you can actually see when it's running where the parts are showing up on the print, which looks pretty cool. I can actually open this up. I'll unlock it real quick. This is actually one of the first printers I got. That one and this one is what started all of Moonshot. This is what an SLS printer looks like on the inside. So you've got a feed piston over here, parts are built over here, and another feed piston here. So every layer, this will move up a layer height, which is 0.1 millimeters. This recoater will push all that powder across, create a nice even layer on the top. This is all heated up with heaters underneath here, and heaters that surround the pistons. And then the laser will shine through this window and actually draw out the parts here. And then when this is done, you'll have an 18-inch part cake inside of here. And we've got to remove that whole cake, and we'll actually take it on that side, and we'll post-process it. So a lot of this, when you think about 3D printing, a lot of people think, oh, you just print a part and you're done. But really, for us, 3D printing, the actual printing is maybe 60% of the actual process. The rest of it is post-processing and finishing and getting the part ready. And so that's what this area is all about. So parts will come over here from the part cake. We'll break them all out. It's kind of like excavating fossils from a big powder mass. Those parts are all covered in like residual powder. So you have to bead blast all of that stuff. And in the past, what we did is put them in a bead blaster and do all of that manually. So it could take 2-3 hours of a guy just standing there all day long, just breaking out parts. And we've automated that with how many printers we have and how we're growing. We might be doing 1,000, 2,000 parts a day. And for a guy to just stand there all day, it's not very efficient. So we actually invested in this. This is an AMT Post Pro DP. It's a very, very fancy bead blaster with automation. So instead of putting all the parts in one at a time, we can put all the parts inside this tumbler, close it up, set a recipe for how long it's gonna blast, how long it's gonna clean the parts, let it run. We can go do other stuff, run printers, call customers, close deals, while this kind of finishes our parts. And then once it's done, we can take all the parts out, clean them off. Then they can go for secondary finishing. So we can do things like painting, assembly, dyeing the parts, clear coating the parts. There's a lot that we can do after the fact to make the parts a little bit more valuable to our customers.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go and get to know you more.
Cool, let's do it.
All right, thanks for that tour.
No problem.
All right, so we're back here with Adnan, and we're gonna get to know him a little bit more. So, I mean, obviously you own Moonshot 3D. You've been in Texas for about a year now, right?
Yeah.
All right, so take us back and tell us the journey, how you got here and how you got set up and everything.
Sure. Well, I started Moonshot, God, it's been about 4 years now. But I started it in the end of 2020.
Okay.
Really started getting things going in 21. We started in Southern California. I actually got the idea while I was still working in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I was working at a couple companies over there, helping to build 3D print labs, and wanted to kind of do the same thing, but on my own. And so the company that I was at previously, which is called Zooks, they got acquired by Amazon, right in the middle of the pandemic, actually. And so we kind of had this period where, we wanted to stay with the company, kind of make sure everything kind of went properly. everything was pretty smooth, and it felt like it was the right time for me to leave and start Moonshot. So I moved back to SoCal.
Had you always wanted to start your own business when you were working for someone else, or is this just something that came upon you kind of suddenly?
I think I've always kind of had it in the back of my mind.
Okay.
My dad's an entrepreneur. He started his company, when I was, I think, 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So he owned a company called Source Graphics, and he recently sold it. But I worked with him on and off almost my whole life. So I've really been inside of like an entrepreneurial setting most of my life. And so kind of growing up in that, I think there was always a thought like, okay, maybe this is something that I would do.
Right.
Yeah. So it kind of was there and then germinated or so as I was in San Francisco, and then finally I took the plunge.
So you're back in SoCal now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you start the company? Like, what did you have to do, funding, all that stuff?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I think I was very lucky. So my dad's company was working in 3D printing as well. And that's kind of where I got my start in this whole industry about a decade ago. So they are a reseller for 3D printers. So they were selling 3D systems back in the day, and then recently Formlabs and Ultimaker, some of the big desktop systems. And so I knew that we could kind of work together a little bit. So in terms of starting the company, my dad and I partnered together. So he was able to put some money and some kind of printers in to help us get started. And then I sold a bunch of my stock I worked at Tesla before.
Oh, I see.
And so I started at Tesla in 2016. I was there for about a year and a half. So I sold some of that stock to help fund the company as well.
Right. So no loans or anything for you?
Thankfully, no loans. Yeah, we didn't have to do any loans or any of that stuff. So was able to kind of hit the ground running, kind of bootstrapped it essentially. My dad's company had about 1,000 square feet of kind of unused space. So we moved back down to SoCal and built a little workshop area in his office and warehouse and just shoved printers in there.
So what was the initial investment, would you say? How many printers did you have to buy? Were there any other costs? Yeah.
Initial startup was probably around 150K.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that included, we bought first. My plan was to ramp up pretty slowly, and so the first thing I bought was the XYZ, and that was like a small SLS printer.
Okay.
All of my background is in SLS printing. So
what is that? Is that different from other types of printing, or?
Yeah. So there's so many acronyms in this. So
Sure.
I apologize. I'm going to just be throwing them. So stop me.
No problem.
Yeah. So SLS, there's like four main ones that we run. So there's SLS, which is powder, powder with the laser.
Okay.
There's MJF, which is powder with binding agents and fusing agents. There's FDM, which is kind of what everyone usually knows. It's like the spool. It's extruded through an extruder. It's like a kind of a glorified hot glue gun. And then there's SLA, which is resin with the laser. The laser can be above or below. There's variations on all of these, but those are kind of like the essentials.
Okay. So how many printers were you able to purchase with your initial investment?
One.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we started with one.
Okay.
Thankfully, he had some other printers that were older models that they just didn't use inside Source Graphics anymore. So I kind of inherited some of that stuff.
Okay.
And then by being inside of his facility where they're selling these printers, we were able to use some of their stuff as well.
Okay.
So Moonshot owned one printer,
Okay.
but we had access to other printers as well.
Sure.
So that kind of helped us start off with a little bit more variability and like a wider arsenal. But technically it was one printer.
Okay.
And then it slowly grew from there.
What other costs did you have to bear with that initial 100,000?
What else was there? Man, it's so long ago now.
Or did the printer cost about 100,000?
The printer itself cost about 50K.
Okay.
Yeah. So the rest of it was just kind of getting the facility set up.
Okay.
So we didn't have a big air compressor, which we needed. That was about 18K, and that was a learning experience as well. There's a lot of just mistakes and learning that I made along the way, which I'm sure is the story for everybody.
What's the air compressor for, I guess?
So these SLS machines, they require nitrogen. So you're going to flow nitrogen through the system because you're essentially heating all of this stuff up. It's about like 170 C, so it gets pretty hot in there. And if for some reason something sparked and there's oxygen inside that thing, it's basically a big explosion.
Oh, wow.
It can catch on fire. It's a little dangerous.
Sure.
So what they do is they inert the chamber, and that does a couple things. It makes it a little safer, but it also makes sure the powder doesn't oxidize. So it keeps the quality pretty high. But you have to run a lot of nitrogen through there.
I see.
And so there's a couple ways you can do it. You can get those big like Duar bottles and hook them up directly to the printer. But you're constantly like having to change those out and monitor them. So what we did is we got a nitrogen generator. And so that takes compressed air, runs it through all these membranes, and actually separates the nitrogen from the air in the environment, pushes that to the printer, and all the extra oxygen and everything else in the air gets exhausted into the environment.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So originally, I bought a piston compressor, which is really loud, and they're not very efficient. And for one printer, it was fine. But then within a few months, I went from one printer to 3 printers. So I doubled the XYZs, and I got a great deal on the S Pro 60. And so I brought that in, and that uses way more nitrogen. And uses way more air. So that piston compressor was running 24/7, and one day, like within a few months, the motor blew out on it. And they came and checked it, and they're like, hey, what happened here? Why are you running it so hard? I kind of explained the operation, and they're like, yeah, this is not what you need. You need like something way better than this. So then we got the rotary compressor, and that's been great now.
So you mentioned you bought 2 more printers within a month. Was your business growing? Is that why?
Yeah.
So tell us how, so you start the company. How are you getting clients, and why is it growing so fast? Like what's happening?
Yeah, it's I think it was a lot of kind of calculated stuff in the very beginning. Actually, so prior to moving to San Francisco, I was working with my dad at his company, and I had been doing marketing and building his websites, and kind of got my exposure to 3D printing through that. And he had all these printers that were sitting there that, they were kind of doing service bureau work for, but not a lot. The guy who was running them ended up leaving. And so I got the opportunity to kind of step into that role. And so I had started building a service bureau with my dad. And so I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm a psych major who kind of found himself in this manufacturing engineering space and made a lot of mistakes and just try to figure out how to do it. And what ended up happening is a recruiter from Tesla had reached out to me. And so they wanted me to come help them set up their 3D printing lab. And there was a guy who was already running it, who took me under his wing and kind of taught me how to do all of this. So long story short is I knew that at some point I was going to leave and do something, either Moonshot. It wasn't Moonshot in my head at the time, but the thought was, okay, maybe I'll do all of this in the Bay Area for a few years, learn how to do it right, and then come back to Source Graphics and work with my dad and really do the service bureau the right way. In the end, what ended up happening is I was like, let me do my own company, actually. Went that way. But because I kind of had that idea in my head from the start, this is back in 2016, I really made a strong effort to build relationships with the engineers that I worked with over there, and kind of built up like my LinkedIn, my contacts, and all that stuff. And it was a lot of networking, really.
Right.
And you're getting to work with all these like high-level engineers who I could have never imagined I'd have the opportunity to work with, and we're getting to help them in these really crucial periods of time. A lot of people will come to us because in the past I've helped them out of like really tough situations. So they'll come to us again, like, all right, I remember that you did this back then. Now that you have Moonshot, you probably will be able to do the same thing.
Sure.
So that's kind of what we did. I just leveraged that network. So once I left, I let everyone know that, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm starting. If you guys need any parts, we can help you out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they just started reaching out to you because of that, those past relationships.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. LinkedIn for me was huge.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of what got me into Tesla, got me into Zoox, kind of built up my network over there. And the only marketing I did for the first 2.5 years was LinkedIn. Just posting stuff, reaching out to people, like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I did parts for you back then. Like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Do you remember how much you made on the business your first month?
I don't remember the first month, but the first year was a little over $500,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you're growing exponentially.
Yeah, it was really fast.
So how's that feeling like? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are like, it's terrible when you don't have any business, but it's almost as terrifying when you have too much.
Yeah.
What's that life like?
Yeah, so I've been on both ends of that spectrum at this point now. So in the beginning, it was definitely scaling way faster than I expected. And definitely there was mistakes made along the way trying to get that done.
What type of mistakes can you remember?
So a lot of it was like facility things, like just the facility wasn't ready. Like when I was in Tesla and Zoox, we had this whole department, the facilities department, and you'd be like, I need X, Y, and Z, and then build it all for you. It's super easy. And now I'm doing my own thing, and I'm trying to keep costs low while also expanding and making money and making the customers happy. So one of the things that happened was, and this will haunt me forever. So those 3 printers that we saw in that room, in the SLS room, that was all in about 250 square feet back in Southern California. It was just cram-packed in a room. Everything was in there, and we didn't have AC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, like at first, because it was just one printer, we didn't really need it. It wasn't letting off that much heat. We could open the doors, put some fans, it was fine. And then all of a sudden we got these other printers. The customers started sending us big jobs and we had to run them hard. And this was probably in like late July where it got super hot in SoCal. Printers were all running. I was in the middle of some really big jobs for big customers and everything started overheating. And like the printers were failing, the equipment, the chillers, like everything that could go wrong was going wrong, just because we couldn't cool the room fast enough. And I was so under the gun because, you make these promises for deadlines for these, we were very lucky to have big customers right off the bat.
Right.
But with that comes a lot of expectation, and like if you let them down, there's a lot of you don't come back from that easy.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm stressing out. Printers are overheating. It got to the point that in the middle of the night, I was just camped there, just trying to keep the machines cool, to the point that it was a drop ceiling. So I went to Home Depot, bought a ton of industrial fans, put them all on the floor pointing up, and I took the ceiling off just to push the hot air out of the room as much as I could.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I tried everything. In the end, it didn't work.
Oh, how long did it take to resolve everything?
So in the end, there was no resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, in the end, I just couldn't do it. And that was, I think, a pretty key learning point for me is like, it's great to scale up really fast, but if you're not ready for it, you're going to suffer. And we suffered for that one. And that client was not happy for a little bit. Thankfully, we made the investments into fixing everything.
Right.
I got AC in the room finally and kept it nice and cold.
Cool.
And so the printers worked and everyone was happy. And so I was able to go back, kind of explain the situation to them. And then they're like, all right, well, we'll send you some more jobs, kind of help build you up again and make sure you're saying what the truth is here.
Right. At least they were cool enough to give you a second chance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is it. It's because of the network, right? I had the director of engineering at that company. I had done a ton of projects for him at Tesla, so he knew me personally, and so he knew I wasn't, being dishonest or trying to like screw them or anything.
Right.
He knew that this was an honest issue, an honest problem. And
Right.
I think being very upfront with him throughout the whole thing helped a lot too.
Right. So like fall on your sword and then start all over again.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how long were you in Southern Cal now? You got your business up and running.
Yeah.
How long are you in California?
So we were started in 2021, 22, and then in 23 we left. So we left in June of 2023.
Okay. What caused that thought process and why Texas, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my wife and I, we've been married for 10 years. She's originally from Plano. And so throughout our whole time being married, we had always talked about, hey, you know what, eventually maybe it'd be nice to move to Texas. And, you know, being a Californian guy, I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, what is the perception of native Californians of Texas, I guess?
It's, I mean, it's probably as stereotypical as Texans think about Californians.
Right.
Yeah, so I think there is some bias of like, okay, it's not going to be, well, I mean, there's no ocean, there's no mountain.
Right.
So for me, like I grew up going to the beach, grew up going to the mountains. So I knew like making this change, I was going to lose a lot in terms of, you know, what my personal interests
Sure.
take me towards.
Right.
But the business was growing pretty quickly and we needed to move. And so I had been looking for spaces in California, and even almost signed a deal a couple of times. Like we got pretty close, but it never totally sat right with me, the places that we were looking at. You know, my dad's office was fairly nice and it was a nice place to work at. Same with the places that I worked at in San Francisco. And so, you know, I kind of wanted to be in a place that I felt happy to go to every day. And I wasn't finding that. And I wanted it to be impressive for the customers when they came and saw it.
Right.
Like be something like that. Oh, like this is where our parts are getting manufactured. Awesome. It's like a level of trust then that gets built just in like how they see the facility.
Right.
And so I just started looking in Texas. Like, let me just see what's out there.
Is it mainly because your wife's from Texas?
It was that, and then the cost. Once I started looking and we started analyzing the cost, I was like, okay, this is going to be way better.
Right.
Yeah, this is way, way better. We could never do this to this level in California, not easily.
Right.
And so we took the plunge. And I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I think in some ways I jumped into it a little bit blind because I was like, all right, from a cost basis, it's good. And I knew that there was some manufacturing in the area, but like I grew up in California and I had been doing this for 10 years plus in California. So I knew all the vendors, I knew where the customers were. I knew like the general lay of the land over there.
Right.
Moving out to Texas, it was like, oh, okay, I have to rebuild, not just the business, but like all of my relationships.
Right, you're starting from ground zero, basically.
Yeah, I thought I was just moving a company. It really turned out I was closing and restarting a company. It was completely different than I expected it to
Did
be.
you have employees that you had to relocate to, or was it just you?
I had a team of 4 other guys. It's pretty small, but you know we were able to run like 14 printers all together. And it was tough because, you know, we were a pretty tight-knit team and everyone worked really well together. And I really tried my hardest to get them to move too. I was like, look, I'll help pay. I tried to incentivize them to come, but you know, I think unless you have a good reason to come here,
Right.
it's hard to leave California. And so I understood. The tough thing was that, you know, we signed the paperwork and everything for this place, and I think it was like August, September-ish time frame. Literally, my second daughter was born, and then we kind of signed all this paperwork and everything. And then come January, everything was supposed to be ready for us. So in November, end of November or so, I kind of let the team know. I was like, hey guys, like, we're thinking about doing this. We're probably going to be moving to Texas. Here's what I can do for you guys to help you move over there. Would you like to come? And pretty much everyone was like, no. Which I didn't blame them for. But I didn't want to wait until January to let them know, because I wanted them to all like have time to find jobs and make
Right.
sure they're going to be okay. I didn't want to just be like, sorry guys, I'm leaving. Bye.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And so I let them know. And so, you know, as they should, they started looking for jobs and everything. Slowly the team dwindled down. And come January, I started getting notices from here that, construction's been delayed. This is going to take a lot longer than we expected it to. You might not be ready to move out here until June.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what's happening to all your clients at this time?
So at this point, thankfully all my clients kind of stayed on.
Okay.
I told my team, but I hadn't really kind of told all the customers yet.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that we're moving. I wanted to make sure we were like closer to the move point before I let them all know. So customer wise, it's fine, but we're still kind of growing. Like our first year we did like a little over $500,000. Our second year we did just a little under $1 million. Okay. I think it was about like 850, 900, something like that. And so we're still scaling up into 22. And then my whole team is gone.
Yeah, how are you finishing projects? Like, are you scaling down a little bit during this 6-7 months?
Yeah, so I the first few months that like everyone started leaving, my last guy left, I think it was February, something like that. So from February to June, it was just me doing everything. Because I probably in hindsight, I should have maybe like brought in some temp workers or something like that.
Right.
But it wasn't like this property company came to me in January and was like, you're not moving until June. It was like, we need another month. Okay, we need another month. So the can kept getting kicked down. So I couldn't really plan for what I was supposed to do except just keep surviving.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I did.
So you're fulfilling all the orders yourself, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I went back to like my roots. It was like when I joined Tesla, I was an entry-level technician. I was the lowest of the low there. And so I kind of just went back to that mentality. Like, all right, get back in there, run the printers, produce parts, do everything on the manufacturing production side.
Okay.
And then kind of managed all the sales and biz dev and all of that at the same time in the evenings.
So there's no rest right now for you?
No.
Okay.
No, it was rough.
When did you actually make the move to Texas then?
So that was the first week of June.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was, first week of June.
So a lot of uncertainty until June, and then you moved everything. Right?
Yeah, they gave me, I think just the month before, I finally was like, got the word from them, all right, we're ready, get over here. And so, I had started getting everything kind of in order for that. By that point, I had told my customers, like the main ones, we had some ongoing projects for a couple companies that were going to have to be stopped for at least a month.
Okay.
And so I had meetings with them and kind of let them know, hey, this is the situation, we're moving. Thankfully, almost every one of my customers was really excited. I think no one really looked at it like, oh no, like, what are you doing? This is going to be terrible for us. They were all like, oh, this is great. You're moving into a bigger place, you have better processes. Like, I kind of sold it like, this is going to be better for you guys.
Right.
We'll be able to do what we need to do better. The parts coming to you will be better, a little bit less expensive.
And all your clients are in California at this time? Okay.
Yeah. We were doing a lot of California work, but by this point, we had customers all across the US.
Okay.
Yeah, we were shipping parts as far as New York, Canada, all over. Yeah.
So now you're in Texas.
Right.
Tell us what that ramp up is like.
Oh,
You basically started from nothing, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think like the first week is very exciting. Of like, all right, good, we're here, all the printers. But then like little problems would pop up. So like this printer had a little bit of damage. This thing went wrong.
Was that in the travel over here? Okay.
Yeah. It was a lot of work just to kind of get everything back up and running the way it was there. I burned through a lot of cash those first 6 months, I think.
So it took 6 months for you to get settled?
I think all in all, it ended up being close to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And that whole time, like, again, back in California, we weren't having to try really. And I hate to put it like that. Like, oh, we didn't have to try and our business grow. Right. But like really, like I wasn't doing any marketing. I wasn't really doing any biz dev except like reaching out on LinkedIn, and we were growing. Once we moved over here, it felt like all of a sudden everything kind of slowed down.
Right.
And a lot of that probably is because I had slowed down myself for the last like 4 or 5 months, moving away from biz dev and sales to just manufacturing. So I wasn't doing all the outreach and all of that, so having meetings and growing the business. I was just treading water.
Right.
And so once you're treading water for months like that, coming back here and then you get everything set up, it was really hard to transfer myself back from that treading water mindset back into, okay, it's go time.
Right.
You get so used to being comfortable. Like, I'm chilling, I'm doing my thing, we're making parts. I was like, I'm a technician again. To like, okay, I have to be the owner.
Right.
I have to run this business. And pushing myself back into that took a little bit of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you able to get help right away when you came here? Or
No.
was it you for a while?
It was me for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for the first maybe 2.5, 3 months. And I hired a guy. Unfortunately, he didn't work out. He was on for a little bit. And I ended up having to let him go. And then I brought another guy on. His name is Ronnie. And he has been just amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
So thankfully, like having him, we've been able to grow significantly, bringing on more printers. So now we're kind of on the upward trajectory again.
Sure.
It feels like.
Okay.
We've started marketing. We do Google AdWords. We do email marketing. We did a trade show here in Irving.
Okay.
Reaching out to vendors, reaching out to customers. So all that biz dev stuff that I had put on the back burner for the longest time, I've kind of brought that back to the forefront. And we're back. I feel like I'm back in the growth mentality, which it feels nice.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did you start getting your first new customers when you were in Texas now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of it was actually referrals.
Okay.
So I kind of went back to my build relationships and get word of mouth coming. So I rely a lot on LinkedIn. So when I moved out here, even moving out here, I did a lot of teasing stuff of like, all right, here's when it was just a frame, I put pictures of that up and like, we're getting ready to do this. And so people knew what the process was. And as we were building and once we got here, it was on LinkedIn. And so just through that, other companies in DFW started seeing it. And so people were actually reaching out to me like, hey, we saw that you moved out here. Like, can we come see this? Or then like there's other companies that we buy materials from, and I would have bought materials from their like competitor in California, but they're here. So I was like, oh, let me reach out to you guys. And through that, just like you start building a little network of all the vendors over here. And the vendors have customers coming to them who might need prints, but they're not doing it. Or we have technology that they don't have.
Right.
And so it becomes kind of like a partnership, a mutually beneficial partnership.
So what made you decide to go extra on the marketing with like ads and going to trade shows? Do you use an agency? Do you do it yourself? Like what's all that like?
Yeah, I do it all myself right now. At some point, I'd like to either bring somebody in or maybe outsource some of that.
Right.
But a lot of the way the marketing is right now is it's highly tied to my brand. I would say, not to be corny, but like I've always thought about like, all right, how I'm linked to Moonshot, right? So like as I was in San Francisco, it was like, how do I develop it so people see me as a person that is an expert in this and they can go to and get trusted parts. And so a lot of my LinkedIn was all about that, like building up that level of trust, showing what we're doing, showing what the brand is. And that was great. But once we got here, like I had to do that. But then, like all of a sudden we went from having very, very low overhead in California. Like I was paying a little bit of rent to my dad. Our utilities were fairly low. It was shared. It was easier. Also, we move over here,
It's all new.
like it's all new. Our rent just quadrupled, basically. We've got a lot more overhead. I brought on more machines, which have higher service level contracts. So we're burning through cash really quickly.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, I can't just rely on this organic growth model that I've been doing for a little bit. I've got to do some like paid real advertising.
Right.
And so I had done Google ads like in the past for Source Graphics. So I knew how to do all of it. So I just kind of reverted back to that and built all of that. I saw that there was a trade show happening here. I had done trade shows a lot back in the day. So yeah, I got a booth and everything set up. I went there. It was just me.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just me in this 10 by 10 booth, but that was great. like that just got us visibility.
Right.
And it made me feel better too, I think, because like when I got here, it felt like I was just like this lone ship,
Right.
just like here doing my little thing and not knowing really anyone or any of the vendors, any of the customers. And then going to that trade show was like, all right, here's my people. Like, here are the customers, here are the vendors. And it made me feel a lot better about the decision. I'm like, all right, we're going to make this happen. It's
Right.
going to be okay.
How long did it take before, like, are you back to where you were in California or bigger? I guess?
We're getting close to what we did in 22.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're on track to kind of do what we did our first year, and hopefully by next year we'll kind of be either kind of back to where we were before the move happened, but really what I want to do is be way bigger than that.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and that's the plan.
So let's change topic a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great story about your business, how you came here to Texas. When someone comes to you, well, first of all, who are the people that come to you? And then when they do come, what's the process like of onboarding them and getting them products and shipping it out? Like, take us through that whole thing.
Yeah, so it can vary significantly
Okay.
from just the scale of the customer.
All right.
So kind of on the smallest end, it can be as simple as, we have customers that it's just a guy inventing his product, and he's developed an idea, he comes to us, and he wants to prototype it. Some cases, they've already done the legwork of having CAD ready to go.
Okay.
And if that's the case, it becomes really easy. They contact us. There's a couple ways they can do it. On our website, we have just a generic contact us page, or they'll just call, send an email. But then we also have a whole quoting system that we just brought in about a year ago, I'd say. And if they have CAD, they can upload the CAD directly to that. It doesn't automatically quote just yet. We're still working on that. But the goal is that if customer has their CAD ready, they know what they want, they can just put it in and order parts directly through the website. So like an Amazon kind of a thing.
So can you explain what CAD is, I guess?
Yeah. So CAD is computer aided design.
Okay.
So if you're making anything, like you're making this cup, right? Someone has to design that digitally first. And so the digital design is kind of the start of the manufacturing process.
Okay.
So someone will design this cup in CAD, and that might be SolidWorks or Fusion 360. There's a whole range of them. SolidWorks is like the king right now. But someone will come to us with that digital design and be like, hey, I want to make this. And if they know what they want, super easy. It's like, all right, I want this plastic, this material, this quantity. All right, we'll quote it. This is what we can do. They pay with credit card. We're on the way. We start making parts. Sometimes they don't know what they want.
Right.
A lot of times, actually.
Right.
So this is kind of where the experience and the consulting side of it comes in. So for me, my thought is we're always trying to do as much as we can to help the customer get to the part that they're trying to get to. And if they don't know what they want, we'll just talk to them. It becomes a conversation. Like, all right, well, what are you trying to do? Is this a fit and form prototype? Are you going to be using this for an extended period of time? Elevated temperatures, low temperatures, pressure? You're going to be putting force on it? Are you going to be cycling it a lot? There's a lot of questions that we ask through the whole thing, just to understand. All right, like it's not that just they need a part; they need a part that can do all of this stuff.
Right.
And there's no technology out there that does everything. So what we're always looking to do is how do we best match the technology's pros and limitations to get as close as possible to what they're trying to do. And it could be MJF, it could be SLA. We have at least 4 technologies that we can rely on, but we have over 30 materials. It's probably closer to 40 something materials now. So trying to narrow that down to what they're looking for is really the key.
Are the materials mostly like plastic type materials, or are there other types of materials you can make? Or?
It's just a whole range of plastics.
Okay.
Yeah, we mainly live in the polymer world right now, but within that, there's just so much that you can do. You can do like carbon filled plastics. You can do really high temp plastics. You can use smoke and toxicity plastics, we have stuff that's actually certified by the FAA that can fly in planes. So we can print parts, they can put them in a plane and go fly with them. We're starting to get into metals a little bit now, which has been pretty exciting. It's a completely new realm for me, so I have a lot of learning to do on that side. But we've done a couple projects in partnerships with some of our vendors.
Okay.
And that's been really nice. Yeah.
What type of material, what type of product were you making with metal?
So these were medical devices.
Okay.
And they needed them to be stainless steel. So it was 316 stainless, and they're actually parts that are used for like implant installation, essentially. So right now they're kind of on the prototyping stage. So they've done a couple of these with us. And then the goal is to get that prototype stage kind of sealed and then move into like short run production like that.
So if they don't know anything, a customer will contact you. Your team can actually do the CAD drawing in-house. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll ask them a bunch of questions about what's actually needed. And you can either do one or hundreds or thousands of these things, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's how big your facility is. You can do thousands of products if you had to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that cup is pretty small. Like how big? Like if I needed a giant statue, could you do that too? Or,
Yeah.
Like how large?
The largest printers we can use are about 600 millimeters all around.
Okay.
I forget what that translates into inches, but they're pretty big.
Okay.
But like, I've done projects as large as entire vehicles to scale. Yeah, we've done some really big stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a statue or something, or a sculpture?
Like an actual vehicle. Yeah.
Wait, like a running vehicle?
Not like a running, but like just a prototype of
Okay.
it. Yeah. So, and like components of vehicles, a big part of my business starting off was the automotive EV space.
Okay.
So we're doing a lot of work for those type of companies.
I see.
So early stage designs that they're working on for the interior of the vehicle. I mean, we've done entire dashboards, we've done entire headliners, trunks, everything. And we'll actually print those all in pieces.
Right.
So they'll give us this huge part, and they'll be like, "We need you to make this." And I was like, "All right, well, how soon do you need it?" Like, "All right, we need a month, a couple of weeks maybe."
Sure.
Who knows? So then it's on us to figure out, all right, how do we print this? How do we split it up? How do we kind of segment this model out, and then set it up on our printers so that we can print it in time and then assemble it all. So we'll do all the assembly here too. We'll assemble it, finish it, and then ship it to the customer.
So you'll have to, if it's a giant vehicle, you print it in sections, put it all together, make sure it fits and everything.
Yeah.
Then you have to disassemble and ship it to them?
No, we'll ship it all as one.
As one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We'll
Okay.
ship it all as one.
Okay.
So that's a really big box.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a vehicle, like a truck has to come and take it from you guys. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is big. That project was done in San Francisco while I was at like the automotive companies over there. So that was an internal project. Over here though, I think the biggest thing we've done is like got entire full interiors of the vehicle. Yeah.
Okay.
And that thankfully is still in sections, but like the biggest section is like the entire roof of the car.
But your printers are big enough to do that?
No. So those printers, so technically, yeah, we do have some large printers that can do that.
Okay.
But those are FDM. And so for what they were trying to do, FDM didn't really make sense. It would have worked, but in the time frame, it would have taken way too long.
Okay.
So instead, what we did is opted to print it in SLS.
Okay.
And so that build envelope is 15 by 13 by 18 inches. It was decent, but it's not huge. You can't fit a whole section of a car into it. So what we do is in CAD or in the build setup software, we'll actually take this whole part and then be like, all right, we're gonna cut it here, here, here. We're gonna just chop it up like a giant Lego project.
Right.
And then the beautiful thing about SLS is you don't have to print one part at a time. We have that whole build envelope and we can just stuff as many parts as possible into that. And so we're always looking to maximize the throughput per build. And that helps us make money because we're printing more parts simultaneously.
Right.
And it helps shorten the lead times, keeps the customers happy too.
Right.
So we might print one build and could be, 24, 25 hour build on the S Pro, but it might have like 6 or 7 sections of like a 20 piece assembly.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then we'll finish all of those, clean them up, and then do all the bonding. And we'll bond everything, sand it down, make it look nice and clean, and then that gets packed and shipped out.
So like you're saying, a lot of it is finishing it after it's been printed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Printing is just like the tip of the iceberg.
So there's a lot of skill and craftsmanship to the finishing part.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I learned a lot of that working at Tesla, working at Zoox.
Sure.
As we were building these giant assemblies for them. And so when I started, again, like I had zero manufacturing experience.
Sure.
The biggest thing I ever made, like as a kid, was like a skateboard ramp, right? And it was terrible.
Right.
So like I had to learn a lot of this stuff on the job, and thankfully I had amazing teachers and amazing mentors over there. I mean, Scott Daniel, who was my boss at Tesla, he's still there. Just amazing guy. Like I don't think I could have done any of this without him being like, let me take you under my wing and teach you everything I knew. Sure. Yeah, like
That's
I
awesome.
owe that guy a lot.
Right. So if you had to though, you could print a vehicle here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
What are some of the more unique projects that you've had to do? Like, take us through that. That'd be interesting.
Unfortunately, a lot of the really unique stuff is all under NDA.
Oh no.
Yeah. So like most of our customers, like on the cool side, they're large automotive, aerospace companies, medical device companies.
Okay.
And a lot of what we see for them is the next generation of their products.
Ooh.
And so we're typically seeing like the stuff that the public won't see until maybe a year or two down the line.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to tell us who these clients are either.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just cutting edge tech stuff.
Cutting edge tech stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything in the past that you thought was pretty cool?
In the past, I mean, there was one project that I thought was really cool that I think we can publicly talk about. So it was for a company. This was both like a great story and a terrible story. So this company, they came to us with this part that they wanted to make, and honestly, I don't think I can talk about this one either.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm realizing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What field was it in though?
This was in the automotive space.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this was in the automotive space. And for a production part.
I see.
So they made this was really cool. The gist of the story was that this company traditionally manufactured all of their stuff with injection molding, machining, kind of the standard way that people make product nowadays. That's kind of changing. When I started this, like 10 years ago, there was this kind of like idea that you could use 3D printing for production parts. And it was kind of like whispered about like, oh, maybe we can do this. Like it's getting closer, but it wasn't there yet. Mm-hmm. But that was what was really exciting for me. When I started, it was like, all right, we can do prototyping. This is cool. But the holy grail is to be able to completely cut out having to go and tool something and invest all this money into just the tooling, and just go straight to production with 3D printing. And so that's kind of gotten more and more over the years. And I think really in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen that explode now. And so this company, very, very old school. They've been around for a long time, doing stuff very, very traditionally. And they had a couple of really forward-thinking engineers there who were like, we don't necessarily need to do it this way. And by not doing it that way, we can design our parts with a lot more freedom. We can do stuff that you can never tool because you don't have to think about any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, you can print just about any type of geometry on these printers now. And so they went straight for that. So we were producing thousands of parts for them at a time.
Oh, wow.
And all of that stuff was being taken by them. Then they would do their final assembly, they pack it, and it was sold on their website to their customers. And their customers were just, drivers, people driving trucks and stuff like that. And they put the product right on their dashboard. It's visible all the time. It looks beautiful. And it was cool. It was a really cool success story. Yeah.
Right. So, but most of your clients then are from the industrial manufacturing, big company side, right?
Yeah.
Do you do one-offs a lot, or
we do one-offs?
Okay.
Yeah, we still do one-offs.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say like in the beginning, my business was probably like 95% one-offs,
Okay.
and maybe like 5% or so production stuff. I think now we've kind of moved to maybe 75-85% prototyping, and the remainder like actual production stuff.
But they're still mainly like technological type jobs, right? They're not like some dude in the suburbs saying, "Hey, I just want this figurine."
Yeah.
It's not like that.
We don't really get into that very much.
Okay.
We could, and we do have customers that come to us for that kind of stuff. But the way that our operation is set up is to serve the higher end
Right.
manufacturing companies. We have some smaller end printers and things like that, and we could do that kind of work, but it does require a lot more involvement with that customer.
Right.
And at this scale, we don't always have that kind of bandwidth.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
When you're dealing with a customer who doesn't know very much about 3D printing or manufacturing, there's a lot more education that
Right.
takes place. And so I don't mind that. It's just that we don't always have the time to be able to help that type of customer.
Right.
So we do have a partnership of other vendors and service bureaus that we've worked with. And so I'll usually refer them.
That's
I'll be like, all right, this other guy has a better setup to be able to help you with this. And so we'll pass that. And that's like one of the cool things about this industry. I mean, obviously it's competition, but a lot of it is like, at least from my experience, has been pretty friendly competition.
Okay.
Where, everyone's trying to help each other at the same time. And the way I've always looked at my partners is that, we have a subset of technology. And what do you have that we don't have? And how do we partner together so that we can both expand our offering for our customer?
Right.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's been good.
I love that attitude. That's great.
Yeah, it works out nicely.
So usually at the end of these things, you let talk about your company. So tell us about Moonshot 3D, and we can end with that, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, Moonshot 3D, we're still a fairly young company. We've only been around for 4 years, but we have a lot of technology over here. We have a lot of capability, and our goal is to be able to help our customers achieve the vision that they're looking to do. Whether that's one prototype, thousands of prototypes, production parts, we're here to help. That's pretty much it. That's what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Well, Adnan, thank you so much for doing this. I love your story.
Thank you.
Wish you all the luck in the world.
Thanks, man. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.